but you can't touch. You keep dreaming on the stars above. Something in your eyes lets me see right through you. There's no mystery, what's on your mind? Something in the way I move must make you crazy. It's a mystery, I don't know why. Get out your best line, take your best shot, baby. You can bet I've heard them all before. Don't take it hard when you fall flat on your face. You won't be all alone down there on the floor. Cause you can look, but you can't touch.
Whew, ladies and gentlemen, this is Nate the Effing Great. Welcome to another edition of Pro Talk Wrestling live here on Spreaker.com. It is time to discuss everything that crazy that's happening with Raw, especially the build-up to WrestleMania 35 in 13 days. It's going to be absolutely insane. And of course, opened up with the theme music, You Can Look But You Can't Touch, Bella Twins theme music. The big story that came out of today, actually one of the big stories I should say, there was a bigger story that came out above that, but for a lot of people this was a big story in and of itself, and that being that Nikki Bella made the announcement. Honestly, it was on her show Total Bellas, but it was also announced online that she has announced her retirement from professional wrestling. And this is one of those things where a lot of people probably are saying, well, she wasn't that good, or she wasn't really that great. What is up, Fretz? Thank you so much for joining me here. Honestly, you guys, I will say this. Was she the best in-ring performer? No. Was she the best character? I would definitely say she was one of the most memorable characters in the ring. And there's a lot of people that can fight me on that. When you think about somebody who is always holding themselves up as like a prima donna, somebody who always could be full of themselves, but somebody who could be as real can get, Nikki Bella definitely did deliver that kind of character. So you had that combined with, at first, not too much in the way of wrestling skills, but as years went on, she definitely got better in the ring, and it ultimately paid off last year when we had the first ever Women's Royal Rumble, and then we followed that up with the WWE Evolution event, in which it's immortalized now that Nikki Bella will be the first person, one of two, to main event the first ever all-women's pay-per-view of WWE. She definitely has deserved every single bit of success that was given to her. She has earned it. It is one of those things where you cannot deny the success that she has. So, Nikki Bella, I know that we've not seen eye to eye. Honestly, I still go back to the story of when they followed me for a week and I felt the wrath of the Bella army. It's one of those things where it was a memorable moment. It's one of those times where I still question why they followed me for that. Fretz mentioned Twin Magic. That is also just one of the memorable moments that the Bella Twins have provided for the WWE. And honestly, they are indeed future Hall of Famers, whether we want to admit it or not. I will definitely be admitting it, and I know there are going to be others that are going to have to admit that as well. Alright, so with that being said, after talking about I think both of them have won the Divas title twice, if I'm not mistaken. I want to kind of just at least give them their proper dues before I move on. It is one of those things where, I may not be a fan, but I still want to give them the proper respect that they have rightfully earned. And I can't think of anything else they have done other than main eventing Evolution, being a part of the Women's Royal Rumble, winning the Divas title a couple times, being a part of the Divas Revolution. It might have been that. It might have been Nikki twice. It might have been Brie once. But either way, let's move on to talking about Raw. So obviously this past week I did not get a chance to talk majorly about Monday Night Raw because I was in Chicago for C2E2, but I was also in Chicago for Monday Night Raw when it was there live. And honestly, guys, it's really good to be back there for that. And I'm going to try and combine both last week's Raw along with tonight's Raw that just took place. So one of the major things that took place here was the fact that they have definitely been hyping up this whole Divas of Doom reunion between Natalya and Beth Phoenix. Last week, they challenged Bayley and Sasha for the tag team titles. Sasha and Bayley are both kind of on the verge of like, well, you know, Beth, you've kind of been away for years, so you really think you still got it? Well, needless to say, she proved tonight that she definitely still has it. During the match with Natalya, we saw Sasha Banks and Natalya putting on a really good matchup between the two of them. And then Tamina and Nia Jax got involved. They decide to beat down everybody, or they try to, until they reach Beth Phoenix, in which she just decides, girls, you don't know who you're messing with. She basically takes out Tamina and Nia Jax by herself, including the returning glam slam from Beth Phoenix to Nia Jax. It was such a beautiful moment. It was one of those moments where it was like, okay, she's back. She's looking really good. I'm looking forward to seeing her back in the ring. And what this all boils down to is the fact that Sasha and Bayley have been assaulted by Tamina and Nia, as well as getting this challenge by Beth and Natalya. And they also lost a tag team match against the Iconics on last week's Smackdown. So they just decided, you know what? We said we were going to take on everybody. We're going to take on everybody. So it looks like it's going to be a four-way matchup. Not exactly what we were predicting, but it looks like it will indeed be a four-way matchup for the tag team titles as Sasha and Bayley defend against Tamina and Nia, Beth and Natalya, as well as the Iconics at WrestleMania. And honestly, guys, that looks to be a really good matchup. Depending on if that is true or not, it's still, the jury's kind of still out on that. Now, of course, the major story that came out today was the fact that WWE announced that the women's championship matchup between Ronda Rousey, Charlotte Flair, and Becky Lynch, they are going to be headlining, they are going to be main eventing, closing out the show for WrestleMania 35. First time ever that has actually happened, and honestly, I cannot think of three women who deserve it more right now than these three. Charlotte has been a really good heel, getting under people's skin. We have seen this different change in the game of the landscape with Ronda Rousey's, attitude. And it's definitely been one of those things that has been, it's different, it's refreshing. It's also giving us a reason to cheer our main man, Becky Lynch. And, of course, Becky is kind of like the conquering hero. She's the Stone Cold Steve Austin of this situation. She has definitely given us something to remember her by. And I'm looking forward to seeing how this builds up for WrestleMania. Last week on Raw, Ronda took on Dana Brooke in a very quick Raw Women's title matchup. I know I was one of the many people saying, hey, here comes the future Raw Women's Champion, Dana Brooke. I did not expect her to get destroyed as fast as she did. And the fact that Ronda Rousey actually used a legit armbar, it's not that cringeworthy armbar that she was using to start off. Nope, it's like an actual legit cross armbar. It looks very brutal. And from what reports have been saying, Dana Brooke actually suffered a bit of an arm injury, some tears, and I believe she might have had a small dislocation in her shoulder. All I can say right now is best of wishes as well as good fortune to Dana Brooke. Hopefully this is not too serious of an injury. And it all culminated tonight where it was all about one thing, and that was building momentum. Building momentum. Building momentum. Because we had a Beat the Clock challenge set for Raw. And it started off... This was tough, you guys. I'm not going to lie. So, we had the Beat the Clock challenge, and it was Ronda Rousey versus Sarah Logan, Charlotte Flair versus Ruby Riott, and Becky Lynch versus Liv Morgan. So, with this series of matchups, obviously, for those that don't know what the Beat the Clock Challenge is that you have a bunch of competitors facing off against each other. Two people will start off, and whatever the time limit is, that they finish the matchup, that is basically the time set for the rest of the evening. So we've had a lot of different situations where this has kind of happened, mainly to determine, the last entrant. The last entrant for the Elimination Chamber, or to get a title shot. Basically, events and stipulations like that. The only difference between those things in the past and this one is that this was all about, as I said before, momentum. There was nothing on the line. I would have much rather preferred for that to be on the line. I would have much rather preferred it be a situation where, hey, you have a beat the clock deal. Winner gets to pick the stipulation at WrestleMania. And it could work out either way. You could have Ronda say she wants a submission match. You could have Becky Lynch say she wants a Falls Count Anywhere matchup. You could have Charlotte say she wants an elimination matchup because she wants to be the one that goes one-on-one with Ronda Rousey. So they're thinking, we take out Becky, we get that one-on-one shot. That's what I would have done for that. But unfortunately, that's not what happened. Ronda Rousey defeated Sarah Logan quick in about 1:25. Charlotte did not get the chance to beat Ronda's record, but Becky Lynch was able to win it with 7 seconds remaining. And you combine all of these scenarios with a promo that Ronda did where she says that she's going to win the match at WrestleMania. This is where it gets weird, because I know that Ronda has been in collusion with Paul Heyman about writing promos and stuff like that. This was one of those times where I feel like this was a really hard promo to get through, because, okay, so here's basically what ended up happening, is that she made her point, then she dropped the mic. She picked up her mic and she said, I have one more thing to say. Said her this piece, dropped the mic again. Then she grabbed the mic again and said, I have one more thing to say. And I'm just standing here, I'm just sitting on my chair just thinking, you've said that 2 or 3 times already. This makes absolutely no sense. It irritated me. Because for somebody who's under the wing of Paul Heyman, you would think that they would have all of the, I guess you could say, common sense to learn to not reiterate certain things over and over and over again. Unfortunately, it just really sucked. And I think that Fretz in the chat, he put it by pretty well. Falsely ending more times than Return of the King, which, geez, that is a very, very harsh blow. And considering it is probably one of the, I think some people might consider it to be one of the best movies of all time, if not one of the top. Anyway, either way, it was just one of those things where it just got really, really bad. Becky Lynch and Charlotte, they of course said their piece. They only did one time. They didn't do like a deal where they dropped the mic and said, oh, one more thing. Although if Becky Lynch would have done it, it would have been funny just because you understand why she's doing it, because she's trying to get under the skin of Ronda Rousey. So that would have been funny. But this is all culminating, of course, for the main event of WrestleMania between these 3 women. And they deserve the main event spot. And it's kind of one of those things where it's like, they can try to screw up this momentum all they want. People are going to be excited as soon as that bell rings. And it's going to be absolutely great. So there's nothing that they can really do right now to truly screw this entire, program. Even though some people might say, no, they've already screwed the pooch with it. I disagree. I think that once we get to the matchup, all of the pain, all the suffering that we had to go through for this build-up, it'll be worth it. Because that matchup is definitely going to be one of the highlights, if not match of the night, if not match of the year. I guarantee it. And I will be there live to watch it. So, going from there, let's see here. Oh, well, I gotta definitely say a great matchup here by Ricochet and Aleister Black as they defeated the Revival. Ricochet last week, he only had a match with, I'm trying to remember, Jinder Mahal, that's right, who, ironically enough, it kind of ties in with another matchup which had Finn Balor taking on Lashley, and it was supposed to be Leo Rush at first, but then it turned out to be Jinder Mahal because Leo was saying, no, I've been injured by Braun Strowman, so Jinder's going to take my place. Finn defeated Jinder, so he gets his Intercontinental title match against Lashley at WrestleMania, and I think we're definitely going to get the Demon King returning at WrestleMania. And honestly, I'm hoping it's one of the biggest entrances that Demon Finn could ever have, because he deserves it. He's one of those big characters that really does stand out, and you can't just have it be one of those things where he does the typical, just walking out to the ring and doing his deal, blah, blah, blah. No. It's got to be something big. And I'm hoping that they do something crazy with the graphics. That's just me. Let's see, I'm trying to think of anything else that majorly happened. Well, I guess we could definitely throw this down. So last week, Batista talked about how, he doesn't like Triple H, how he was not a fan of how Triple H used him to keep the world title around his waist, how he basically was just this meathead for Batista, for Triple H to use, and blah, blah, blah. And basically during tonight, Triple H goes out on a limb and says, yeah, I mean, you basically hit every single right note, but people have known these things for years. So, welcome to the party, Dave. It's just one of those things where it was like, huh. So, and he even runs it down. He talks about how Batista's early runnings, how, he went through Evolution, how he was a deacon, and then he gets to the deal where he talks about Batista's lawyers basically adding a stipulation to the match at WrestleMania in which we see if Batista wins, then Triple H's in-ring career is over. So this basically states probably the fact that Batista's going to lose. And to me, there's also a small part of me that thinks maybe that's not going to be the case, because Triple H is definitely getting up there in age, and I think that if he loses to Batista, it will be a complete shock. If Triple H wins, I don't think it'll be as shocking, because people have already been calling it and saying that's what's going to happen. But I still predict that we're going to have a really good matchup. It's no holds barred at WrestleMania. This could be Batista's last matchup. He's definitely said in interviews that he wants this to be, his last hoorah. That Triple H definitely kind of, he kind of helps bring out the best of him, and it's true because he's done basically. He main evented 3 pay-per-views with Triple H, and they were all really good matches. I mean, you talk about WrestleMania 21, Backlash, as well as Vengeance. And, yep, it's going to go full circle. Man, I'm going to tell you guys this right now. When me and Fretz, who's the newest member of the Game Changer podcast, when we do a lot of these things, a lot of our reviews, you're going to hear the phrase, everything comes full circle, a lot. So be prepared to have a lot of shots on you. All right, so the other main thing that came out of these Raw deals is the fact that we finally get a new matchup set up, and that is Drew McIntyre versus Roman Reigns. Last week, Drew McIntyre talked about Roman Reigns' family. He slandered him. He then says that he will beat him down at WrestleMania. Roman Reigns came out this week and he says, the big dog accepts. And I'm going to tell you this, not as Roman, but that if you ever talk about my family like that again, you're going to regret it. Roman beats him down a little bit. People are just going nuts. They are liking it. Drew gets a low blow in on Roman and then a Claymore kick. This is going to be a really good matchup, too, because I said this on Twitter, that this is probably the first time we've seen these two actually compete in a one-on-one environment. So it's going to be very interesting to see how they square up against each other. Honestly, if we see a Niagara driver on Drew McIntyre, I will be legitimately impressed. But yeah, it's another really good matchup that I think is definitely going to really make WrestleMania memorable. There were parts during Raw I just kind of zoned out on. One of them being the whole deal with Braun and the two guys from SNL. I'm not even going to bother with their names. This is literally just so stupid. But basically, Braun convinces Alexa Bliss to put them in the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. That's basically all that is for that. So, yada yada, blah blah blah. Drew McIntyre also had a really good last man standing match tonight. Recently just went off the air. One of the things that really gets me is how brutal this was. Dean was going for like an elbow drop from the top rope, and Drew does this kendo shot onto the belly, and you just see like it just exploded on Dean's belly. It's one of those things where it's like, oh, geez, that's rough. There's a point where they tried to do like a little eye spot where Drew's about to try and stab Dean in the eye. Dean's able to block out of it. Really good chemistry between Drew and Dean. Because honestly, it's really crazy because they've done regular matches, they've done a false count anywhere matchup, now they did this last man standing match. It's one of those things where, oh boy, it's just going to be absolutely insane to see how these, with Dean possibly just no longer doing televised matches, at least that's what the rumor is, because that would also explain why he's doing shows after WrestleMania. But you just never know with WWE. Maybe they convinced them to stick around a little bit longer. But we'll have to wait and see. So, I think that covers Raw to a T. Definitely enjoyed it. The build-up between Seth and Brock has been pretty good. We had two situations in which we saw Seth and Paul Heyman kind of have a little confrontation. It was really good. Liked it. Can say nothing bad about this. I'm looking forward to seeing these two behemoths clash at WrestleMania, in which, thankfully, I think Seth is going to take the title off of Brock. It just makes sense to me. It needs to make sense to me. I'm not going to lie. Alright, so now I can continue talking about SmackDown. I can talk about SmackDown now. So for SmackDown, last week, it was headlined by a gauntlet match. Kofi Kingston was battling up against 5 guys, and if he won, he would face off against Daniel Bryan for the WWE title at WrestleMania. So we get this really good matchups between Kofi and Sheamus, Cesaro, Eric Rowan got himself disqualified. Got a good matchup between Kofi and Samoa Joe. We also got actually a really great it was still a really great matchup between Kofi and Orton, in which we got the reference from Kofi's moment where his push went downhill, where Randy Orton just said to him, "Stupid." It's one of those moments where it stands out in wrestling history as one of those moments where you realize something happened, something went wrong, and let's hope it doesn't affect his future. And now, we're looking at it years later, and we realize that was where his, momentum just died. And he has yet to recover from that. And who would have known that it took an injury from a cruiserweight to help Kofi get back on his feet and help him get him back in that prime position to possibly be the WWE champion. I say possibly because of what happens at the end of the matchup. So he beats Randy Orton in the final 2. and everybody's celebrating. I'm celebrating. I'm thinking, yes, we're getting Kofi Kingston at WrestleMania. It's going to be awesome. Vince McMahon decides to come out and says, well, you can go to WrestleMania, provided you can beat this one last opponent. And it turned out to be Daniel Bryan. Bryan comes out, and they have a really good 4-minute deal, I think it was, until Bryan hits the running knee. Boom, 1, 2, 3. And Kofi's dreams are crushed. He is no longer going to WrestleMania. Although, for those of us that are smarks, we know that that's not the case. But I really like the story that's being told here, especially when they do the backstage segments. Like, okay, so after Smackdown went off the air, there was a backstage deal in which Kofi, Big E, and Xavier Woods are talking, and Big E is just saying, well, here's the thing. We don't have to take this anymore. We can just leave. We can just up and quit. And we can go find another place to basically get over. And Kofi brought up the really good point of, hey, no, we can't do this. Because if we quit, Vince McMahon wins. We have to stick around here and we have to, basically fight. We have to keep fighting for it. We're going to get more of a response of what Kofi and the New Day think about the Gauntlet match deal tomorrow on SmackDown. So it'll be very interesting. Fretz, if they do something like that where it's the New Day versus Kofi Kingston, that would be kind of interesting, especially if they did reenact the finger poke of doom. Oh my gosh, I mean, how hilarious would that be? Let's see here. I mentioned the SmackDown deal. I definitely need to mention this. Kurt Angle is still doing his farewell tour. They announced that his opponent for WrestleMania was going to be Baron Corbin, which I still believe that we're going to get some kind of swerve where Baron Corbin is not going to be the final opponent for Kurt Angle. But you just never know. They might still go through with it, and honestly, if it helps develop Baron Corbin into a viable threat and make him into a more validated superstar, I'm okay with this. But Kurt Angle has had really good matches back-to-back with Chad Gable as well as Samoa Joe tonight. And tomorrow he will face off against AJ Styles. So we got... Oh, and they even announced next week that Kurt Angle will be fighting Rey Mysterio. I mean, geez Louise. I can only imagine how that's going to be. Man. The only thing that's going to be missing is Kurt Angle fighting off against Randy Orton next week, Tuesday, on SmackDown. But it seems like the more that they do these kind of cross-promotion deals, the more I do believe that they might be killing the brand split pretty soon. That's my thoughts on it, but we'll see what happens. Another thing that's going to be happening tomorrow on SmackDown is that there's going to be a Fatal 4-Way matchup to determine Asuka's opponent for the SmackDown Women's title at WrestleMania. Might even be the pre-show, sadly. We have Naomi versus Carmella versus Sonya Deville versus Mandy Rose. I can already say right off the bat, Mandy and Sonya are not going. So it's either going to be Carmella or it's going to be Naomi. I think that more than likely it's going to be Naomi. I'll be willing to put a safe bet on that. It's just one of those things that really sucks because Asuka came in like a house of fire. She was white hot coming in from NXT where she had the undefeated streak, and they just watered her down the minute that she lost to Charlotte. The minute that happened, she just fell into a just into a really deep hole, and it sucks for her because she doesn't deserve that. She deserves better. Other than that, I mean, you look at some of these other deals that are going on. Rumors are going around that there might not be even a tag team title match at WrestleMania, which I don't think I'm against that. I think that with them trying to create so many different matches to put on this card, it's going to be very tough to, build up some of these matches to their full potential. I mean, the Usos versus the Hardy Boys, I think you only need like maybe a smidge of potential, and already people just, boom. they are just going to put on a match that's very magical. But do I see, Ricochet and Aleister Black versus Revival being on the main WrestleMania show card? No, definitely not. I see that happening more like next week on Raw. But we'll see what happens. I think that's going to wrap it up for the news as far as WWE goes. So I'm going to take a short little commercial break. And then when I come back, I will talk a little bit about Impact Wrestling, some AEW news that has got me really, really excited, and also some questions that I posted up for you guys to ask me earlier, so I will definitely get into that. So with that, I will talk to you guys in a bit.
Check out the guys over at Eclectic Media Project. They bring you podcasts such as Musically Challenged. Whose podcast is it anyway? Want to hear something interesting? And their newest podcast, Page 3.14 News. Check them out on Podbean and iTunes at Eclectic Media Project, on their website at www.eclecticmediaproject.com. Check them out as they are the home with a little something for almost everyone.
Hey guys, this is Nate the Effing Great. Hey, have you ever wanted to be a champion but can't seem to really find the money and the time to get a championship belt? Well, you know who's a really good friend of mine? AJ from AJsBelts.com. These guys have a large assortment of championship belts, from classic belts to the modern day belts to championship belts you would not even believe. And guys, like I said, they work with you very well. With an awesome layaway program, there is no way that you can beat these guys' prices as well as these guys' deals, especially when you can give them a little bit of money every now and then until you can get that championship gold. Coming from a guy who's a champion and a game changer, I'm indeed Nate the Effing Great. I'm representing AJsBelts.com, proud friends of the Game Changer Podcast. Alright guys, this is Nate the Effing Great. This is Pro Talk Wrestling here, of course, part of the Game Changer Podcast. And guys, I gotta tell you something. That this past weekend, like I said, I had a crazy amount of time just spent in Chicago. And that was for the big comic convention known as C2E2. And I'm bringing this up because I literally had one of the best experiences of my life. And I'm not even bullshitting that. From meeting up with quite a few wrestling fans, trust me, there were a boatload of them, and even meeting some of the wrestlers that were there, I got the chance to meet Elite in Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks. We got a really good picture. Definitely you can find that on my Facebook, and I will try to get it up on my Instagram as best as I can. Probably not going to be tonight. It'll probably be tomorrow. We'll see. But the other person that I really enjoyed seeing this past weekend was a man by the name of CM Punk. CM Punk has definitely been one of those guys who I have admired and who I've respected for so long. I've really not had too much, horrible things to say ever since he left. He had his reasons to leave, and I respect that. And I also respect the fact that, some working places don't want to admit when some things are right and when some things are wrong. But the point being that my respect for CM Punk has not diminished. It really hasn't. It's kind of one of those things where you can believe so much, and you can also relate to it. But until I have valid proof that if some people are going to say oh, he's a scumbag or something like that, unless I have real valid proof that he is, I'm not going to believe it, because my experience with him so far has been good. Literally, I went up to him, I shook his hand, I had him autograph a picture that I purchased from a really good group called Artist Club. Trust me, I want to talk about them and a couple other people in just a bit. But yeah, he was very calm. He was very calm, very mellow. I literally said to him, "Hey, dude, I don't mean to blow smoke up your ass. I want to just tell you that you're one of my favorites and I respect you." And he just said, "Hey, that's really cool, man. Thank you. I really appreciate that." And we got a nice picture. I did the whole Straight Edge Society deal. My only regret about this whole entire thing is that I did not wear my CM Punk t-shirt. I wore the Roman Reigns t-shirt that he put out a few weeks ago. But it was still one of those things where I shook his hand. I was happy with it. And I got to meet so many great people, so many great cosplayers, so many great wrestling fans, including, some people might know this name, of Nicole, from the Patreon chat for RWA, Rant with Ants. Definitely go check that out, you guys. And definitely check out, Rant with Ants Patreon. They have a lot of great content there. And in just about a week, we'll be launching our own Patreon page for the Game Changer. So definitely look out for that. I will make the official announcement and do the official page release. Hopefully by midnight that night. We'll see. But also, speaking of Nicole, she actually is one of the people that are going to be a part of my little series that I had going on during C2E2. I literally went around the entire event, and I did this deal where I interviewed people, cosplayers, wrestling fans, and Nicole was definitely one of the people that I interviewed during this whole idea. So definitely expect that to be out within the next week or two. I will get that ready to go. It's definitely a lot of fun interviewing these people, and really, it's not even that long. Most of them are about a minute and a half for interviews. So, because I didn't want to take too much time, I could do interviews with people for a full-fledged hour. People have seen me do it, but at C2E2, they want to enjoy the rush. They want to enjoy the ride. So if you just take a minute, it'll be okay. But yeah, people like the Artist Club have these really great drawings and these really great designs that definitely are really good. Definitely go check them out. There is all these other new people that I'm hoping that we can get for, to do shout-outs, to do stuff like that. And I will also say this, that I actually picked up a book from a guy in Britain who I am hoping to do a review as well as an interview with him in the future, but I also will be doing a review on his first book that he gave me. So I will be doing that hopefully. We'll see how things go, because with work and everything, Wrestlemania, it's going to be a little while. Hopefully I want to try and get that review out by the end of May. Hopefully I will have read the book in its entirety by that point. But we'll wait and see. It's a great book. It's about fantasy. It's about just a lot of these great adventures. It just looks really, really good from what I've seen. So I'm looking forward to reading that and reviewing that within the next few weeks. But yeah, there's just going to be a lot more happening coming in April. Like I've said before, Patreon coming out. It's got some really great Patreon backer benefits, such as, shout-outs, answering questions during shows, getting the fans more involved with the creation of content, even getting fans to be a part of the show, because I would really love for fans to actually, come on, and we just, can chit-chat about basically anything. It could be comics, it could be movies, it could be stuff like that. I probably won't get into anything too political. Like if somebody says, well, how do you feel about global warming? I'm not going to be one of those people that's going to be like, well, It's just one of those things where, I don't like going into politics because that puts me in a negative place, and I would rather stay positive. Even though there's negative things in wrestling, granted, there's still a way to find a way to just, circle it around and bring it into a positive. So, speaking of wrestling, though, AEW actually announced that they are going to have a second All-In event coming back to Chicago. While they have not determined a date, location yet, they have announced that they are going to try and bring All-In 2 back to Chicago. Maybe it's going to happen within the next year. Maybe it's going to be within the next 2 years. They have announced that they really want to do it again. And honestly, I will definitely be there for that. Just like I'll be there for Survivor Series in November when they decide to bring it back after 30 years of waiting, which I'm hoping that we don't have to wait that long for WrestleMania to come back to the Chicago area, or even Minneapolis for that matter. We'll see. It kind of just depends on how Vince McMahon and Triple H just see it, because it seems like they really like to focus on the bigger stadiums, which it's ridiculous, but I have no say in the company. Another thing that's been going on, especially with that, Impact, I've never really gotten a chance to do full-fledged actually watching the episodes, and I really hate that I'm not able to do that. But one thing that's been keeping me hooked is this whole story between Demon Bunny. For those of you that don't know, that's Rosemary as well as Allie. So basically, Allie was taken by Su Yung as well as Father James Mitchell. Basically, just possessed, and she'd lost her soul in the dark realm. Rosemary came back to bring her back. They won a match to get custody of Allie, and Rosemary's trying her hardest to bring back Allie into the light. Fortunately, Dark Allie is just not, she's not letting anything go. She's just letting every attempt that Rosemary do, she's just letting it kind of slide off and just brushing it off. That's it. So Rosemary had a confrontation with James Mitchell where she demands the soul of the bunny, as she calls it. And James Mitchell says, well, in order for you to do that, you have to go see, him. And I swear, if this is just somebody dressed up like him from the Powerpuff Girls, I will literally laugh. But the way that they've been describing it is that, James Mitchell is not the devil, which I honestly thought he would be. But nope, apparently there's somebody more powerful than him. Who is it? I have no idea, but it's going to be very interesting to see who it turns out to be, who's the wrestler it's going to be, what kind of persona are they going to bring out. Honestly, jeez Louise, if they bring out like Mil Muertes, that'll be insane. That's just my take on it. But alright, we are just going to be running, well, I wouldn't say we were running out, but I think it's definitely time right now to, the higher power. Yeah, a higher power in TNA. That's literally all we need. So, basically, I had people during the night tweet at me using the hashtag #BeatTheClock, and they asked me questions that they would want me to answer, anything wrestling related. So let's get right into it. Mr. Fretz, who's in the chat right now, has asked me quite a few questions, and I always appreciate them. So thank you, Mr. Fretz. Shout out to you. And also welcome to the family again. So he asked the first question of who will be the next WWE star to get a shortened name, and will we someday see someone debut as a single letter or number? So what I assume that Fretz is really referring to is the fact that they've been doing this deal as of late where they have just been cutting off a lot of people's names. And some people have had really good names. Biggie Langston was an example of somebody of making that work. But I think a lot of people preferred Biggie more than anything. Alexander Rusev was another one, but Rusev just sounded so much better. Elias Sampson, they just reduced that down to Elias, which is totally fine. One of the worst examples was with Andrade Cien Almas, where they just turned his name to just Andrade, and then apparently they decided to take Mustafa Ali's name and then just reduce it down to Ali. For what reason, I have no idea. But who do I think will be the next star to get a shortened name? gosh. I'm trying to think of like somebody that is in NXT right now that would probably end up being there. I mean, there's Dakota Kai. They might just call her Kai for all we know, or Kyrie, just to change up the name. Maybe they'll do the same thing with Candice LeRae. They're just going to call her Candice. But to answer the second question, well, will we someday see someone debut as a single letter or number? Honestly, at this point, I'm surprised they didn't do that with EC3. I'm very disappointed in how they've been treating him, and honestly, it's at a point where it's like, you might as well just call him like E or 3. Just one or the other. Because you're obviously not doing anything with him. You might as well just continue the stupid train going. That is just, Jesus. Alright. Now, this is kind of an interesting one also brought up by Mr. Fretz. If you could Thanos snap and bring back only 2 deceased wrestlers and have a current run in their prime. So, I'm going to see if I can try to read this again. If I could do a Thanos snap and bring back 2 deceased wrestlers, who would they be? And they would be in their current run in their prime. Okay, so 2 deceased wrestlers. For me, I would definitely have Eddie Guerrero, because I always loved Eddie Guerrero as a wrestler. He was always great as an entertainer. He's just one of those guys that I feel was taken from us way too soon. Even though people are going to say, well, he was turning, I think it was like 38, 37 or something like that. But yeah, it's just one of those things where I really enjoyed Guerrero. I liked his work, and again, taken far too soon from us. The only other person that I think would have been, who I would probably put in the list, would probably be, this is going to be tough, would be Owen Hart. He was a person who was in an unforeseen, unfortunate circumstance that cost him his life. Another person who was taken from us way too early. I think he would have just soared and excelled as a high-level wrestler. And I think that eventually, I would say give him, let me say this, if, Over the Edge didn't happen, they didn't do the whole thing that they did, I would say within like the next year or two from there, he probably would have been a world champion. That is how confident I feel about Owen Hart. And it also does bring up a point before I go into the final question, that being, Bret Hart and Jim the Anvil Neidhart, they are going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame this year as the Hart Foundation. And I did pose this question as to, why is it that it's just those two when there are other people that were a part of the Hart Foundation? And people know I'm right, because you have people like Jimmy Hart, you have Brian Pillman, you have, of course, Owen Hart, and you also have Davey Boy Smith. So many other people that you could bring in for that whole deal, and it could be the same deal with DX. You have a whole faction going in. Hart Foundation is also a faction. They can all go in. But Fretz also brought up the point of, as long as Martha is around, unfortunately, there's nothing that, we can do. And unfortunately, it's true. She has still not forgiven WWE. She still holds a huge, burning anger over WWE, which I understand. I just think that there's so many people that would love to still experience Owen Hart and still love to hear about his stories. And it's just one of those things where, if you keep that to yourself and not spread the love and joy that a person brought to lives, it just doesn't settle well with me. I know that there's also issues between Owen as well as, not Owen, Martha as well as Bret. There were some issues that went on between the two of them years ago, so that might be another reason why we were probably not going to see him in the Hall of Fame, if not mentioned on WWE programming at all. Alright, then we go into the final question here, is from Nicole, surprisingly enough. who asked the question, how awesome was it meeting me this weekend? And honestly, I'm going to tell you guys this. Meeting up with wrestling fans is always fun. When I met Nicole, basically she tried to get my attention by saying my name. She said my name 5 times. And she was literally going to be that woman who comes up to me with her phone, has a picture, and says, "Is this you?" She literally told me she was going to do that. But no, we finally got the chance to, meet up. I remember just getting a big old hug from her. It was just absolutely fun. If you look on our Twitter pages as well as the Facebook pages, you will definitely see a lot of the fun that we had. One included her getting almost her head decapitated by Jason. So, and that wasn't Jason. That was Mike Myers. There we go. Michael Myers. Oh my gosh. I'm getting tired. But the way that she just comes up to you and just is so warm. And by that I mean like she's got such a warm heart. She definitely is one of those people that will make you feel appreciated. And she and I had some really good frank conversations about how it sucks that we still live in a world where the internet community is just so negative and so trollish. It is just such a toxic place to be. But to find people that are real and to find them that are they have their heads screwed on right and who are definitely just absolutely wonderful people, it's always really wonderful to see that. So for them, for a fan like her to be that warm and embracive, it's a wonderful feeling. And it definitely was one of those things that I will definitely not forget. And I'm looking forward to seeing if that's still going to be a possibility of everybody's reaction, if not certain people's reaction when I go to New Jersey. There's going to be some people that are probably going to be like, "Oh, hey, how's it going?" They're going to be happy to see me. And then there's probably going to be people that are just going to be like, "Eh." And I could be 100% wrong. I'm hoping that I'm 100% wrong. But we'll see. So that's going to wrap it up for this edition of Pro Talk Wrestling. So, Mr. Fretz, thank you so much for joining me here in the chat. For the questions, you guys, thank you so much. And yeah, Wrestlemania is only 13 nights away. It's just going to be absolutely wonderful. It's going to be a lot of fun. Next week, there's a lot of stuff going on, including next week, Saturday. Got to mention this. At the Holiday Inn in Stevens Point, Frontline Pro will be hosting a wrestling event. It is going to be just absolutely a lot of fun. If you haven't gotten a chance, go check out the interview that I had with Ben McCoy. And we talked a lot about the Frontline show as well as a lot of the genesis of Frontline as a company. It is definitely one of those things that are really just absolutely wonderful things to hear about. Also, at the end of the month will be the ACW Water City WrestleCon. That's going to be an absolutely great show as well. It's headlined by Logan Lynch taking on an Impact star known as Johnny Mundo, a.k.a. Johnny Impact, a.k.a. Johnny Nitro, a.k.a. John Morrison, a.k.a. Johnny Survivor. And he could be known as Johnny Oshkosh when he gets there. You just never know. But yeah, also the Frontline Pro show next Saturday will feature a first time ever a triple threat Iron Man match. So definitely check out and just enjoy the absolute hell out of it. It's going to be a fantastic show. It's also going to feature Mr. Anderson, and it's going to be just a lot of fun, a lot of great wrestling fans, a lot of great sponsors. Definitely go check that out. So, with that being said, I've been Nate the Effing Great. You've been listening to Pro Talk Wrestling. You know how to find us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. Definitely go check out the pages for Mr. Fretz as well as Taylor, because they have a lot of great stuff on their pages. Taylor with her YouTube page, Mr. Fretz with his site as well as his podcast, which is on Anchor.com. With that, you guys, be sure to check us out on Spreaker.com, iHeartRadio, Spotify, SoundCloud, and as well on YouTube. Have a good one, and I'll talk to you in the next episode. Bye-bye.